Okay, so don't forget tomorrow have a vocabulary evaluation. That's right. And Wednesday we're not in class due to, I'm sure everyone will go and cheer our runners on. At least that's the goal that we would like for you to do. So with everything that we've done so far, okay, what I want you to think about is, for some of you, this is going to be old news, okay, because we talked about this on Friday. And that would be, when it comes to glucose, why is that important, whether it's for plants or whether it's for humans and or animals? First of all, it's not that you need to know the formula, but here it is. So we could, let's say, if it's starting on this side and byproducts are given off on this side, what would you guess that would be? This is a clue.
Carbon dioxide? Dioxide.
Okay. What about carbon dioxide?
That's the result of this.
What process does this look like to you?
Us breathing? Maybe, it's not photosynthesis. What do you mean? Is it? Why not? Why isn't it? Because it produces CO2. What's that?
Okay, so then what happens if we totally change this and say this?
That photosynthesis. Are you sure, brother? Yeah. All positive. I am.
Because the thing on the top is what animals and humans do, but the thing on the bottom is what plants do. So it's like photosynthesis.
Okay, right. And if you remember, we actually had drawn that one reaction going one way and one reaction going the other. So which one's photosynthesis then?
The one on the bottom.
Okay, so then this is photosynthesis. This must be what in humans? That'd be respiration. Okay? So we can conclude that these processes, when you have one process and another process, plural, how do you say that? Processes? Is it processes? Okay, processes. That's what I thought. Say that fast 3 times. You just did it, huh? Maybe it's not that hard. See, I think it's difficult. Okay. Alphabetization. That's another one I struggle with too. Okay. Now, for humans, are we just limited to respiration, do you think? The answer is no. We haven't we have not dove into this far enough yet. Okay? Because let's take this perhaps nice and slow. And with photosynthesis, okay, is there only one way that plants will get this vital substance right here? Do they both utilize something like this? What might that be?
The electron transport chain.
The electron transport chain. Yes, they do both utilize that. Okay? Do they both go through a process of respiration? Yes, they do. But it's just how the process takes place. Because with plants and photosynthesis, are we just limited to light? We have these. And if you have light reactions, you can also have what? Which does not mean, don't look at it like this, okay? We call this the Kelvin cycle. Now, the reason that's important is stoma or stroma or something like that a vocab term in your on your list? Okay? So what I want you to think about is when we talk about these light reactions, where in the plant is this taking place?
The leaves.
Why does it have to be in the leaves?
That's what absorbs the sunlight.
Right. So then probably the biggest concept here has something to do with that. Because what does that water do?
Starts the whole reaction.
I think someone said it. Yeah, it splits. Okay? In other words, you have this. No, that's not right. That's not, we're not talking about chemistry here. Well, we kind of are. Okay? Which means you're going to end up with this and that. And this is how this gets to be over here. Notice we're kind of adding to this. So how does this electron transport chain, what is driving that? From what's left over? From this right here. Now, I suppose this should be green to try to make this somewhat accurate. Oh boy. Okay. That's maybe not quite so bad. Okay. Since this is green, this is probably supposed to be what? A leaf. Okay. So, right. If we drew little tiny structures in here, these are like little door openings. Those are your stroma. I think that's how you pronounce it. Okay. So if it is during the heat of the day, these little stroma, they are tied shut, as tight as they can be. Why might that be? Because if they're open, what are the plants going to lose?
Water.
They're going to lose water. Don't want to lose that vital water. So then during the night time, yes, that's why we get the name dark reactions, because what's happening is these structures then open up and those leaves can now take in what?
Water.
They can take in carbon dioxide. Okay? And take this substance and then make carbon dioxide. Starts to make sugar or glucose. Starts to take all these carbon units and link them together. Okay? Now, what I want to continue on with is Mr. Wagner kind of introduced me to these. So we'll take a look at, is it crash course? Okay. Now, do those get to be annoying, do you think? I think it does a pretty good job of actually explaining what's going on.
They go too fast.
Yeah, they
Yeah, I feel like they do go a little fast.
Okay, so with that, I will get that on the overhead. So then it's ready to go. Just give me a minute here.
Simply Nourish is a high-quality, truly affordable option for your pet's food, packed with
Have we seen this one already?
No.
Oh, and that's why I thought maybe we've seen parts of this already. But regardless, here we go.
Are you a morning person? One of us is, and one of us is definitely not. Mainly because when I wake up in the morning, it just takes a while for me to get my energy back. It takes a lot of time and coffee for that to happen for me. Cells really don't have that luxury. They are busy performing cell processes all the time. active transport of many substances needed for their survival, for example. And the energy currency they need, specifically, is ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. It's a type of nucleic acid, actually, and it is action-packed with 3 phosphates. We have a video all about ATP and how it works as an energy currency. So where am I going with this? Well, cells have to make this ATP. It doesn't really matter what kind of cell you are. Prokaryote or eukaryote, you have to make ATP. The process for making that ATP can be different, however, depending on that type of cell. One way is called aerobic cellular respiration. Lots of organisms can do aerobic cellular respiration, but this video is specifically going to go into aerobic cellular respiration in eukaryotic cells. That means this video is talking about the process within cells that have membrane-bound organelles, such as a nucleus and mitochondria. Eukaryotic cells include the cells you'd find in protists, fungi, animals, and plants. The mitochondria, which can be found in most eukaryotic cells, are going to be kind of a big deal in this aerobic cellular respiration because some of the process occurs in the mitochondria. So let's get started. Remember, the major goal for any organism performing this is to make ATP. Okay, here's the overall look at the equation for aerobic cellular respiration. Remember that reactants, inputs, are on the left side of the arrow, and products, outputs, are on the right side of the arrow. This equation, by the way, looks remarkably similar to photosynthesis. Look at how the reactants from this step is approximately 2 pyruvate and 2 ATP molecules, and 2 NADH. What is NADH? NADH is a coenzyme, and it has the ability to transfer electrons, which will be very useful in making even more ATP later on. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, an intermediate step occurs. The 2 pyruvate are transported by active transport into the mitochondria, specifically the mitochondrial matrix. In the mitochondria, pyruvate is oxidized. The 2 pyruvate are converted to 2-acetyl-CoA, which will be used by the next step. Carbon dioxide is released and 2 NADH are produced. Step 2, the Krebs cycle, also called the citric acid cycle, still in the mitochondrial matrix. The citric acid cycle is considered an aerobic process. While the cycle doesn't directly consume oxygen, some of the events in the cycle need oxygen to continue. To learn more about this intricate cycle where the 2-acetyl-CoA will enter, check out the further reading suggestions in the video details. Carbon dioxide is released. We also produce 2 ATP, 6 NADH, and 2 FADH. FADH is also a coenzyme, like NADH, and it will also assist in transferring electrons to make even more ATP. Step 3, the electron transport chain and chemiosmosis. This is just a beautiful thing, really. In eukaryotic cells, this is still in the mitochondria, and to be more specific, it's involving the inner mitochondrial membrane. We do require oxygen for this aerobic step. This is a very complex process, and we are greatly simplifying it by saying that electrons are transferred from the NADH and FADH to protein complexes and electron carriers. The electrons are used to generate a proton gradient, as protons are pumped across to the intermembrane space. All these protons being pumped out into this intermembrane space generates an electrical and chemical gradient. The thing is, if you remember from our cell transport video, ions, like the H+, don't easily travel across membranes directly without something to travel through. The protons can travel through an amazing enzyme called ATP synthase. If I could be any enzyme, I'd be ATP synthase because it has the ability to make ATP by adding a phosphate to ADP. ADP is a precursor to ATP. ADP has two phosphates, but if it obtains a third phosphate, it becomes ATP. So, in chemiosmosis, the protons travel down their electrochemical gradient through a portion of the ATP synthase, powering it to make ATP, the ultimate goal. Oxygen is the final acceptor of the electrons. When oxygen combines with two hydrogens, you get H2O, water. If you remember from our equation, water is a Listet product. Now, the electron transport chain in chemiosmosis step makes a lot more ATP compared to the other two previous steps. How much? So I've noticed in my years of teaching and the assortment of textbooks I've collected over the years, there are some different numbers in cellular respiration charts. In fact, you can even see them change a bit in different editions of the same book. And it's made me want to emphasize that it's important to not just memorize a number, because it really is more of a range. I want to focus less on the number of ATP made per glucose molecule because it depends on a lot of variables. One variable is the gradient we were talking about, how many protons were pumped across the mitochondrial membrane. You can see more variables discussed in the factual references, and those references have estimates ranging from 26 to 34 molecules of ATP per glucose molecule in the electron transport chain in chemiosmosis step alone. Then, if you add the other two steps, Krebs, otherwise known as the citric acid cycle, and glycolysis, you could estimate a range of anywhere between 30 to 38 net ATP molecules total per molecule of glucose. Again, to emphasize a range. Now, this was just one way of creating ATP. But like we had said at the beginning, all cells have to make ATP, but the way they do it can differ. If there's no oxygen available, some cells have the ability to perform a process known as fermentation. It's not as efficient, but it can still make ATP when there isn't oxygen. We have a video about that. We can't emphasize enough how important the process of making ATP is for cells. For example, cyanide, which is found in some rat poisons, can block a step in the electron transport chain, which would block ATP production. A poison that prevents ATP from being produced can be deadly. With the important role that mitochondria have in ATP production, there is also a demand for increased research on mitochondrial diseases. We are confident that the understanding of how to treat these diseases will continue to improve as more people like you ask questions. Well, that's it for the Amoeba Sisters, and we remind you to stay curious.
Okay. Then, if I'm not mistaken, from last week, okay, was there an enzyme that we talked about in plants that's really, really important?
Yes.
Rubisco, that's right. And what university was doing that research? University of Illinois, that is correct. That stands out in my mind. What plant is readily used to study because it's really easy manipulated?
Tobacco.
Yeah, it's tobacco. It seems like there's a couple more that I would like to go into, but time is not on our side. So I would like to continue with this from South Dakota Public Broadcasting, and that is it, no?
Literary.
No. Maybe it's here. Oh, here we go.
So I think what it means is that we can still get simple cells to divide by purely physical mechanisms.
But just because you're important doesn't mean you're entirely competent.
An efficiency award is missing.
It's people who can plant them.
I think this is
The
about where
general
we're at. Yeah,
scientific
that looks
consensus
familiar.
is that they're no more dangerous than conventional drugs, though they need to be carefully studied for potential health and environmental. Bacteria began cranking out oxygen as a waste product.
A microscopic view shows chains of green cells.
Eventually, bacteria produced enough oxygen to accumulate in the atmosphere, which in turn gave rise to one of the ozone layer. It's in the lowest level of the stratosphere, between roughly 8.2 miles up.
A plane ascends.
Atmospheric research planes venture up here. Comes from a process in the higher stratosphere. There, solar radiation busts up O2 molecules into individual oxygen atoms. Where they convert O2 into more chemists. Molecules like ozone and those in sunscreens interact with light.
So any molecule can absorb light.
It turns out the ozone layer and sunscreens have a lot in common. This O3 sunlight that can't see.
A graph of electromagnetic spectrum appears.
On the electromagnetic spectrum, light sits here, but UV sits up here at a higher energy. Scientists divide it roughly into three kinds: A, B, and while A and B aren't good for you, and are the reason to wear sunscreen,
Volleyball. David and Carrie sit on the sidelines.
the ozone. Just enough Sunday.
I'm not mistaken, there is a paper that was handed out to you. We had said, let's have that done by, we probably said Wednesday, but we're not in class on Wednesday. So Thursday the 28th, that paper is due. So with that, we will conclude for today and catch up to you next time.